What's the dumbest myth people today believe? Story 1, that you'll be safe if you hide from a tornado under an overpass. That overpass is a funnel, wind speed picks up under there. There was a video floating around telling people to get just beneath where the bridge connects to the ground. A video of people who were hit by a tornado and did this popped up later, and they were fine, largely because they were hit by an extremely weak tornado. Went over this one a few times in my natural disasters and hazards courses. Story 2, the worst myth is that the current way to operate our society is the only possible way. As a corollary, the idea that any new way to run our society has to be built for every edge case before it can be tried. It's pretty easy to figure out how to run a society without private health insurance that makes people die, or without people needing to use 75% of their income for rent. But people believe it is impossible and that the world would end if you tried. Story 3, the part of that gets me is, if this is going to kill the people getting the vaccine, that means they're killing the mindless followers and all of the opposition. Anti-vaccine people will survive. That makes their whole argument make even less sense. Why would any government choose to kill off those who support them in a way that will save those who oppose them? If I'm explaining my point well. But the whole argument is counterintuitive. Story 4, I think that the single greatest myth that most Americans believe is that America is somehow still the best country in the world to live. Many people feel that even with all the problems we are facing, we still treat people better than any other place on earth, and therefore America is deserving of our loyalty and unquestioning support. This is absolutely not true, and if I didn't have family tying me to here, I would have crossed the pond long ago. Story 5, giving your cat milk. Adult cats are actually lactose intolerant, only give it to your cat if they are younger. Also, putting on any custom on your cat is bad for their body. Cats sweat from their paws, so if you put shoes on them, they also lose their keen senses and a way to cool off. And their whiskers also help them, so any hindrance of it will lower some of their senses, so please don't put them in a dumb costume or give your grown-up cats any milk. Story 6, that you can catch the flu simply from walking outside in the cold or opening a window in the middle of winter or sitting on a cold wet metal bench. Colds come from viruses, so it's literally impossible to catch a cold somewhere without germs regardless of temperature. All that cold weather changes is how stationary the air is, causing germs to remain around for longer, and decreasing our immunity to germs already in the air we breathe in. Story 7, in NYC, they are placebos. The lights are either controlled by simple timing logic or by DOT to limit traffic congestion. Out in the suburbs, they actually work. There are a few lights around where I live that will not turn green unless there is a vehicle present. They use a sensor to detect when a vehicle is waiting. My motorcycle does not trigger the sensor. So I hop off and press the crosswalk button and hop back on. It triggers a green light. Story 8, asystole is not a shockable rhythm. This persistent myth is actually harmful and because it exists, is likely responsible for some deaths. Also, doctors don't give medications. Nobody sticks needles into tubing. Also, the only reason anyone would ever be putting a needle into your forearm is to get blood/start in 4. Nurse Jackie is the only medical TV show I've ever seen that got remotely close to realistically portraying a hospital setting. Story 9, that lemmings commit mass suicide. It's a myth created by the horrendous notion set forth in the Disney film White Wilderness 2. In fact, many people to this day do not know how messed up the scene that caused this myth to spread truly is. As the cast members filmed lemmings being thrown off a cliff in a manner that seemingly depicts them jumping themselves. It's an unforgivable reminder of the terrible nature of Disney's foundational base. Story 10, the moon landing was fake. Ignoring that there was 6 moon landings. There is no way Russia or China wouldn't call them out. Russia had launched the Sputnik and had the first human in space. They had the means to track the moon landers. Both China and Russia can now get satellite maps of the moon. They can see the lander on the surface. No way either of them wouldn't miss the chance to humiliate the US edit to fix spelling error. Story 11, had to explain to a grown-ass adult that blood isn't blue inside the body and red once it hits oxygen because blood already carries oxygen. ETA, I didn't expect this to take off. I first commented when the post was brand new and only had 30 comments. I understand that I came off as a snarky asshole about it, but the dude and I were cool after 10 minutes of convincing him that what he was taught was a myth. No hurt feelings, buds. Story 12, that dogs or wolves have an alpha and you have to be dominant over them. This has been disproven in 1970, but popular media like Cesar Millan has made it impossible to die like it should. Ensue false training advice based on punishing your dog and severe behavioral fallout cases. It's a damn shame because everyone wants to do what they think is best, but don't realize that this type of training does much more harm than good. Story 13, that the police are here to protect you and the government is here to help you. None of this is true. This police protect themselves and the government helps the government and other governments. Here's another myth that we all like to believe. We grow up to be self-sufficient. Our parents and in-laws pitch in on child rearing, relationships of passion all rely on each other to lean on and everybody has some type of boss. Story 14, not exactly sure if this is a myth, but I hate the misconception that having multiple passwords for your accounts means you'll forget all your passwords. Like it's 2023, and it still baffles me when an IRL friend tells me their account got hacked because all their accounts share passwords. It's like a lot of people just choose not to be smart with privacy. Use a password manager. Write down your passwords. So many ways. Story 15, I'll list one I believed up until about 3 years ago. You know, in TV and film, when women are late, it could be a strong indicator of pregnancy? Well, I was under the impression that the opposite should be true, that if a woman starts her cycle, that she isn't pregnant. Imagine our surprise 1 month later when we found out we were pregnant with our first child. By the time we found out, we were already 3 months along. Story 16, that ER workers will let you die if you're an organ donor so we can procure your organs for transplant. I can assure you that in every CPR I was part of, the last thing any of us were thinking was your organ's donation status. We wanted you alive another day. Organ donation is an incredibly rigorous process that involves a lot of testing and discussions with family. It can take about a week for the process to finalize. Story 17, I just finished reading a book about QAnon and whoa, that definitely has to be it. People believed that a secret government agent was using an anonymous chat board originally created to share anime and hentai to coordinate a secret mission against a child trafficking cabal of elites that harvested their adrenochrome to stay young. They were so sincere in their beliefs, they literally tried to overthrow the government. Story 18, the thing about how flashing your lights while driving at someone to remind them to turn theirs on is some kind of gang initiation ritual that will get you killed. Supposedly, gang members would drive around with their lights off and then kill the first person who would flash their lights at them. This used to be on some kind of email chain back in the day. An old boyfriend of mine even believed in this myth. Story 19, the level of ignorance about the Apollo program among deniers is astonishing. Most of them have no idea what it even is they're denying. There was a guy on here a while back who said it was impossible that NASA could get everything right the first time without anyone dying. I pointed out that the mission that landed was Apollo 11 and that the ghosts of Chaffee, Grissom and White should kick his ass. Story 20, driving barefoot is illegal. Vaccines cause autism. Diabetics are all fat and are sedentary with a poor diet. Going into the cold causes a cold. Wet hair causes a cold. Waking a sleepwalker will kill them. First Amendment means you can say whatever you want. That any random stranger wants to give them lots of money. Blessing looms/secret sister. MLM/direct marketing will make them a significant income. Story 21, I've had a few teachers that were gay, and I've sat through Disney movies and all sorts of other girly shit, but not once have I ever left a movie or a class thinking, holy fuck, I think I need some dick right now. If you, or your kid, can be talked into being gay in less than 90 minutes via exposure to a movie or just talking to a gay person, you weren't straight to begin with, you were just denial. Story 22, my mom laid this on me thick when I started asking her if I could shave my legs. She made me think that once you shave, you can't go back to not shaving or you'll turn into Sasquatch. This was the 90s with information readily available. WTF made her think that is beyond me. Joke's on you, Mom. I don't shave from November to April every year and my leg hair is the least weird thing about me, thank you. Story 23, the gates between sections were literally only waist high. They weren't meant to physically hold anyone back. Also, while not entirely a myth, the idea that if the Titanic had more lifeboats, then more people would have survived. When she went down, she still had 2 lifeboats unlaunched. More lifeboats would have just meant more that never got used. The entire safety doctrine needed to be overhauled. Story 24, there's this very popular myth that everything was created by an invisible, omnipotent, omniscient being. He used to be such a dick that he killed almost every human being alive once, but then later he decided that he loves us all. He has the ability to end all human suffering, but chose us not to. He's responsible for everything good that happens, and his nemesis is responsible for everything bad.